Welcome to the Technical Writing Success Podcast. This is episode 143. I'm Fred, your host.
And I'm Daphne. It's great to be digging into another key topic today.
Absolutely. We're looking at something crucial for anyone building or documenting. Well, anything, really. How do we know if what we create is actually usable?
That's the core question.
So today, we're unpacking an insightful article by this show's own producer, the senior technical writer Curt Robbins. It's called Understanding Usability Testing.
Right, and for context, that was published on LinkedIn, October 17, 2025.
And this is really for all you technical writers, documentation specialists, and IT pros out there. We want to get into how you can genuinely validate if your product, your docs, if they're truly consumable.
Exactly, because in our world, IT and tech writing, hearing something is usable. That's like the highest praise you can get.
It really is.
So the source defines usability testing pretty clearly. It's a structured process, basically observing actual users trying to complete real tasks with a product. Could be software, could be hardware, could be the documentation itself.
Okay, so structured observation. But how is that different from, say, QA? People might mix those up.
That's a really important distinction. QA, quality assurance, its job is finding bugs, right? Functional failures. Does the button work?
Right.
Usability testing, though, it's more strategic. It's looking for friction, points where users get confused, maybe design flaws, or places where the content, the documentation, is ambiguous. Anything that stops the user getting to their goal efficiently.
Efficiency.
Yeah, we're testing the clarity, the instruction architecture, not just if the code runs without crashing. It provides objective data to back up design and documentation choices.
Okay, let's hone in on that efficiency part. For documentation, that means things like information architecture, IA, navigation.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be just as solid as the actual instructions. Yeah.
Precisely.
Because if someone spends, 5 minutes just finding the right procedure, then it only takes 1 minute to do it, well, that friction, that 4 minutes wasted hunting, that's a usability failure, even if the steps themselves were perfect.
Exactly right. And that friction, it translates directly into costs. Which brings us to the big value proposition, the ROI.
The return on investment, always key.
The main advantage is cost reduction and risk mitigation, big time.
Okay, but risk mitigation, that can sound a bit abstract. How does the article quantify that? Make it concrete for you listening.
This is where it gets really compelling. The source makes a strong case, and honestly, our experience backs this up. Finding a flaw, whether it's in the design or a critical error in the docs before you launch, that is exponentially cheaper than fixing it afterward.
Exponentially. Why so much?
Well, think about the cascade effect. It's not just the cost of, say, recoding something or republishing the manual.
Right.
If something fails post-launch, suddenly your support lines are jammed. Agents get burned out. You might need expensive emergency patches, internal training materials, suddenly out of date.
Okay.
And the biggest one, customer frustration, churn, people leaving because the experience is bad. Testing lets you tailor the product to how people actually use it, not just based on the internal team's assumptions.
That really hits home. Because every time a user has to call support or log a ticket because the instructions were confusing, it's not just a customer service line item. It's like organizational debt. Proof you guessed instead of checked. So for a technical writer listening, a successful test is like actual proof. Empirical evidence that your structure, your navigation, your clarity, it works. It shifts the conversation away from subjective stuff like, I don't like the tone, towards subjective facts like users completed the task 90% of the time.
Exactly. And ultimately, that smoother self-service experience, which is what good documentation delivers, it drives user satisfaction, builds brand reputation, makes your customers feel capable.
Okay, so the benefits, the ROI, seem incredibly clear. But, and here's where it gets maybe a bit tricky, achieving that proof, getting that objective data, it takes resources, a significant commitment.
It does.
We have to talk about the practical challenges, the cons. The barrier to entry can be pretty high.
Yeah, that's fair.
Usability testing, done right, it's time-consuming. And it can be expensive. You need significant resources just for recruiting the right participants, people who actually match your target user profile.
That's critical.
Then you have to develop detailed, realistic task scenarios and dedicate people, actual staff time, for careful observation and then the analysis afterwards. It's basically a whole project management effort in itself.
And beyond just the cost and time, there's the statistical issue, right? The sample size limitation. You might test with, say, 8 users, maybe 10, and you might find some really critical flaws, which is great. But those findings, they might not capture the full range of issues that a really diverse global user base might encounter. Different skill levels, different environments.
That actually brings up another point. If the goal is real-world efficiency, how much does the testing environment itself kind of skew the results?
That's a fundamental question you have to ask. It's a potential caveat. Sometimes that structured setting, where the participant knows they're being watched, they're focused on one task, it doesn't quite replicate real-world use.
Right. Like in their actual job, they're rushed, they're distracted, maybe multitasking.
Exactly, under pressure. So you always have to question, are we seeing a natural usage pattern here? Or is it slightly artificial because of the test setup?
And then there's the final hurdle. You do the test, you identify the problems, but that doesn't magically fix them.
No, it doesn't.
The data you get, it requires more time, more resources to actually implement the recommended changes. You've basically just quantified your design debt. Now you actually have to pay it off with updates, fixes, documentation rewrites.
That's a great way to put it, paying off the debt.
Let's take a brief break for a special message from our producer, Curt Robbins.
Hi, this is Curt Robbins. First, thanks for listening. I truly appreciate your support. I want to let you know that I'm currently accepting new clients. My rates are affordable, and I have more than 25 years of experience working for enterprise companies like Microsoft, Northrop Grumman, Oracle, PNC Bank, FedEx, USAA, and Wells Fargo, among many others. If you want to improve your IT documentation and communications, hire me. I deliver fast, know how to use AI to improve efficiency and accuracy, and love going the extra mile to satisfy my clients. Thank you for subscribing and listening. Back to you, Daphne and Fred.
Welcome back to the Technical Writing Success Podcast.
Okay, so before the break, we were digging into the pros and the cons of usability testing, the benefits versus the resource drain.
Right. The practicalities.
So if we connect this back to the bigger picture, the way usability testing is viewed and used, its appeal. It really isn't one size fits all. It gets tailored pretty heavily based on the organization's scale, its risk profile, its strategic goals. The source actually breaks this down nicely by audience type.
Okay, different strokes for different folks. Let's hear it.
First up, large enterprise organizations. Think big companies. For them, testing is often essential, not just for usability, but for compliance and consistency.
Compliance,
Yeah.
regulations.
Exactly. Enterprise software, things like SAP or massive Oracle setups, they involve really complex multi-step workflows. And the documentation often has to meet strict regulatory standards, both internal and external.
So for them, testing isn't just about making things easier for the user. It's about minimizing legal risk, protecting core functions.
Precisely that. Testing helps ensure employees can actually execute those critical, high-stakes procedures. Things like complex financial reporting or maybe system admin tasks during disaster recovery, stuff where errors are not an option.
Got it.
It validates that the training manuals, the procedures, they effectively scale that institutional knowledge and those compliance rules across huge, often global departments. They need the data to prove the system is safe, compliant, and teachable.
Okay, that makes sense for the big players. Now, contrast that with, say, small companies and startups.
Right. Totally different world. For them, the appeal is much more about survival and speed, velocity. They just don't have the financial cushion or the engineering team size to easily pivot or redesign everything after they launch.
So early validation is crucial.
It's almost existential for them, a critical investment. The source points out that even just, say, 2 days of quick, focused user testing on an early prototype, that can massively de-risk an entire development cycle.
How so?
Well, if they find a really confusing onboarding flow in that quick test, fixing it then saves the engineering team potentially hundreds of hours building features downstream that users might never have reached anyway because they got stuck early on.
Prevents wasted effort.
Exactly. And their documentation focus tends to be on immediate help, getting new users up to speed fast. Testing confirms that their help content is concise, it's easily searchable, it's right there when needed. That directly minimizes their support load, which, for a startup, is a total lifeline.
Okay. Enterprise, startup.
Sure.
What about individuals, like consultants or freelancers? How do they fit in?
They use it too, often as a competitive edge. They might leverage some of the lower cost, often unmoderated usability testing tools that are out there now, like user testing, maze, tools like that.
So it becomes part of their offering.
That's right. For a consultant, showing they focus on verifiable user experience, that becomes a core part of their pitch, their value add. They can use that objective data to justify design choices to a client.
Takes the subjectivity out.
Exactly. It transforms what could be a subjective argument, well, I think the navigation is fine, into an empirical finding. Look, 3 out of 5 users in the target group couldn't complete task A because of this navigation structure. It elevates their recommendations above competitors who might just be relying on gut feeling.
So boiling it all down, what's the main takeaway here?
I think it's that usability testing, really. It's the bridge. It connects the theory of good documentation or design with actual real-world success.
It's the proof.
It's the objective proof that your clarity, your structure, your navigation choices, they actually work when a real user is under pressure trying to get something done. It's how organizations, big or small, make sure they're solving the right problems. And that saves enormous amounts of time and money down the line.
It forces us to admit that our assumptions about how people use our stuff, they're probably wrong more often than not.
And the only way to know for sure is to watch them, to observe.
Okay, before we wrap up, here's something for you to think about this week. Little provocative thought. Where in your own organization, maybe you're in a high-stakes enterprise setting, maybe a fast-moving startup, where is the lack of objective usability data right now forcing decisions based on subjectivity? Or maybe even ego?
Good question.
Because that area, that's probably where you need to start asking questions about testing.
Thank you for listening to the Technical Writing Success Podcast, where we help you get smarter than your competition.
Remember to like, subscribe, comment, and share.
We'll see you next week.